Hey Josh, welcome.
Hello. Thank you, Claire.
Very excited to have Josh from Bocky and Rangiora on our Behind the Business podcast today. We've already had a little chat about how Josh came to be where you are today in the business, so we're going to dive a bit into that. But do you want to introduce yourself and what you do to start off with?
Sure. Well, as you know, I run a business in Rangiora called Bocky, which we launched with some friends of ours. Alongside that, I lead a church in Christchurch. I do that. I'm on the role there 4 days a week. I'm a dad of three kids, husband. We have some commercial property interests that we are looking to continue to grow. And I've got a dog. Coach my son's football team, run the girls around to ballet, just general life stuff.
I mean that's a full CV on its own.
Mm.
There's quite a few points to that. And I think we can all resonate with that, parents and business owners. So, Josh, I'm going to ask you a few quick fire questions. Don't overthink it, but just get us in the mood.
Yep.
Where were you born
Christchurch.
and where do you live now?
We live just out of Christchurch, just out of Rangiora. Swannanoa if you are selling, West Earton if you're buying.
That's good to know for an out of towner.
Yeah.
What do you love to do?
I enjoy movies. I enjoy playing PlayStation with my kids. I would say that I enjoy long walks on the beach, but actually, I'm not an overly outdoorsy person. If it's sunny, I do like the beach. I like going on holidays, Claire. We just got back from
Yes,
2 weeks in Thailand. I enjoyed that.
I enjoyed your stories from Thailand, my favourite place.
Mm.
And what's the thing you love most about Christchurch?
Oof, it's just home. I spent a few years away from Christchurch when I was younger, but came back in sort of 2011, and it's pretty much where I spent most of my life. I like it. It's flat. When I got my driver's license, I enjoyed that I didn't have to do any hill starts in the test because there are none.
Such a good point. Unlike Sydney, where I was, where it's literally
Yeah,
like dying of sweat wherever you walk. Yeah, it's a
yeah.
beautiful place, and it is very flat. Thank you. So I'd like to get stuck into it. Obviously, I know a bit about your background, and we've had a
Mm.
good chat. But how did you get started from what you were doing into gelato in
Right.
Rangiora as well?
Yeah. Well, my in a previous life, I spent 10 years working in radio as an on-air personality, and I did that through until 2011. We were living in Auckland at the time. We had a 1-year-old daughter, and I promised my wife that we wouldn't have a second kid in Auckland, that we'd move home. And so when we found out that she was pregnant with our second child, I resigned from my job and we moved home to Christchurch. And clearly, the only thing that I had done in my life was radio. And the only thing I knew for certain that I did not want to do moving forward was radio. Um, and I remember lying on the couch at home, and my wife came in with a pen and a paper, and she sat down next door to me like some kind of Sigmund Freud analyst. And she said, "What do you want to do with your life?" And I was lying on the couch, and I said, "I don't know, but I know that I don't want a boss. I'm tired of having a boss." And so she wrote down, "Okay, wants to be his own boss." And then she said, "Well, you have to start a business." And I said, "Well, I can't start a business. I've got no idea what I'm doing." So she said, "Well, you need to buy a business that already works." And so, long story short, I ended up buying a franchise in the construction industry, just a one-man band repairing tiles and grouts. And this was 3 months after the big Christchurch earthquake. And so there were a lot of damaged tiles and damaged grout. And
Yeah.
so I kind of cut my teeth in business ownership on that and learned about marketing and learned about budgeting and learned about, income and outgoings and GST and all that kind of stuff. And then I sold that after 7 years, and I just had a wee play with different business opportunities, bought some businesses, sold some businesses, made some money, lost some money, and again, just kind of learnt in the arena of life. I have no official qualifications in anything, let alone business. And then some
Me
friends of ours
too.
started this gelato business up in Whangarei, and we went and spent a couple of weeks with them over the Christmas holidays because we're good friends, and we came home. And about 6 months later, I got in touch with them and said, "Look, one of your stores would work really well here. Have you thought about franchising it?" And they said, "Well, not really, but let's kind of do a bit of a joint venture with your one. And when we say joint venture, you guys pay for everything, and we'll give you all of our experience and know-how. And if it works, then we'll go, yeah, we've got proof of concept and we can franchise it." So they have now
Wow.
done that. They've started franchising it around the country, and it's going very well. But we were the first one to kind of give it a shot outside of their original store. And that's kind of how I ended up, doing what we're doing now.
That. And just to your point on, I didn't, when you said, oh, I didn't know what I was doing or I didn't have any qualifications, the amount of people I speak to, we're all winging it. We're all having a go,
Mm,
but it's the people that have a
absolutely.
go that, can make it. So I think, to make it relevant and relatable for other people, as long as you've got a passion and you've got a bit of naivety, you
Yeah, I
just,
have I have a good amount of naivety, Claire. We opened
me
up a
too.
second gelato store a year later, and it was an abject failure, and we lost well over six figures on that. But learnt a heck of a lot in that time as well. So we've had ups, we've had
Yeah.
downs,
Oh, we
but
can
that's how
touch
you
on
that's
that.
how you learn.
That is how you learn. Otherwise, life would be very
Mm,
boring. So, this is an
yep.
interesting question for you guys, but I believe there'll be a really good answer to this. How does your business help people?
Well, first of all, if we didn't exist, Claire, there would be very poor quality ice cream in Rangiora, or gelato, I should say.
Yeah.
But it is a good question because ultimately, for a business to be successful, you have to be solving a problem.
Hmm.
And that was one of the big lessons that we learned with our second store. Our first store, we opened it up in Rangiora. There were dozens of eateries and cafes, but no options when it came to dessert. So the overwhelming feedback that we got from people when we opened was, "Thank you for opening something like this here. We have needed this. We've said for so many years we need this." And of course, we'd said that too. That's why we
Yeah.
opened it. And that was great. It went really well. And then a year later, we opened up a kiosk in a shopping mall in Christchurch. And not a single person said to us, "Thank you for opening a gelato kiosk in the shopping mall. We've really needed one of these."
Right.
No one had ever thought that. It wasn't a problem that we were solving, and we lost a lot of money on it. So,
So, it helps people because you identified that there was probably 30 cafes, 10 Thais, and 7 fish and chips in a kebab shop.
yeah,
Um, and not somewhere nice to eat a dessert and have a
yeah,
sit down without a drink, like a coffee and an ice cream. And ice cream
yeah,
does help people. Gelato does help people. It makes you happy. It's a happy place.
it does. I mean, one of our nicknames for our cafe is the Fun Place. And
Oh,
we are, that was another thing that we learned. Sorry, I can't get away from the lessons that we learned. We didn't recognize initially how much of our product was the destination, not the food.
right.
And when we opened the kiosk in the shopping mall in a food court and we removed that destination element from it, it was an abject failure. So we provide a place for families, for couples, for grandparents and grandkids, for mums and dads and kids to just come and have a great time. Our busiest time of the day is 3 p.m. till 5 p.m.
Oh, I
after school.
bet.
And then our second busiest period is 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. after dinner. People just want to come and hang out.
Yep,
So
that's
it's just a
very
fun place
European,
to hang
actually.
out,
Yep,
isn't it?
it's well, it is.
Yeah.
It's like, where do you go in the evening if you don't drink alcohol? Like, in Europe,
Mm,
you can go to a cafe, you can sit outside, but there's not so many places here that do that. So to have somewhere in the evening, and it is a destination, you want to go out to get ice cream. Like, it's
yeah.
part of the thing, isn't it? Like, what should we do? Let's go out. And you've got such a nice space, a welcoming space, and the colours and everything
Mm,
makes it really fun. And I think it does help people. It's community, isn't it? And socializing and
yeah. Yeah. We,
relaxing.
we give away an inordinate amount of vouchers to, sports clubs and dance classes and
Oh,
raffle
wow.
prizes for different charities and things like that. So yeah, everybody loves a gelato.
Yeah, they do.
Mm.
Um, so what makes you different from the rest of the industry? What makes Bocky Boo different?
Well, I think, to be successful, you want to be you've either got to be better than everybody else or first to the market or a combination of both. Uh, we're very fortunate in Rangiora in that I think it's really only got the population to support one store like ours. And so now that we're in there, I think that's probably Rangiora covered. So what makes us different is there is nobody else in town that does what we do, which is very helpful. Like you say, we're on a street corner, and on our left is a cafe, and on our right is a cafe. There are a good amount of cafes in Rangiora, but I mean, 80% of our business would be the gelato. And then yes,
Yep.
we have coffees, and yes, we have desserts, and yes, we have scones and muffins and things like that. But that's just for the odd person that wants something with their coffee. But um, our gelato is also very authentic. We import all of our base ingredients directly from Italy. We use paddles rather than scoopers. We train our staff to scoop the gelato based on how the Italians scoop it. We work with genuine Italians to develop our recipes. So our intention is to be as genuine and as authentically Italian as we can be. And the best feedback that we receive is from people that have been to Italy or Italians that are over here, and they'll taste it. They'll say, this just tastes exactly like, we have in Italy. So, yeah.
So cool. That's amazing. I didn't realize the detail or the lengths that you have gone to have that authenticity with
Mm,
obviously the kings of gelato. I should be making a trip out this weekend.
you should.
I'd love to. But it's all those details that matter, and that's what will make you stand out, and that's what people notice. Um,
Yeah.
so, casting your memory back from the beginning, what's a moment, or what are you most proud of in the business journey so far?
I think I'm most proud of the risk that we took. We had some really big conversations with some friends of ours, family members, and the overwhelming question we got asked was, "Do you think it'll work?" And we
Oh,
said, "Well, we hope it will work. We think it will work. We believe it's a calculated risk, but we can't deny that we don't know for sure that it'll work." And we took out a pretty sizable mortgage on our house to make it work. It was a big step for us. Um, and I'm proud of us for taking that step and giving it a go. I think a lot of people, even amongst our friends and our family, said to us, "Well, good on you for doing it. We wouldn't have the guts to do it." And
yep,
no guts, no glory, as they say. We
yep,
gave it a shot, and it did work. So I'm proud of
uh,
us for doing that.
yeah. That's it. That's a really interesting answer, and I really love that because as a business owner, it's something you've just done. You don't think twice about it. But from people looking in,
Mm,
it's huge. It's something they can't ever even grasp. And some people can put you off the idea too. But if you've got it in your gut feeling that this is it, to take that step's really brave.
mm.
I was going to give you a clap. It's really brave.
Thank you.
Not the
Yes.
average person would take that risk. Like it's not an everyday thing to do, is it? So just
No,
doing
it's
it
not.
and
But
alone.
that's one of the things that I think separates entrepreneurs and businessmen, businesswomen out from the everyday person is that we do give things a go. And
Hmm.
I think it's really important to have a mindset around an input mindset rather than an output mindset, and to not get hung up on necessarily the results, but what kind of person do I want to be? So, my wife and I, we resolved very early on that we wanted to be people that took risks, that gave things a shot, and I suffer seriously clear from FOMO.
Hmm.
Um, I said
Me
before
too.
we opened up a second business in a shopping mall, and it was an abject failure, and we lost pretty much clear. We lost all of our income from the previous 12 months that we generated through a successful business. We reinvested that into a second business, and it failed. Um, but if you said to me now, "Look, would you do it again?" I would, because I have total peace that we gave it a shot. We scratched that itch, and it didn't work, and we learnt a lot of valuable lessons. But if we hadn't done it, I'd be sitting on this call saying, "Oh, I still don't know if it would have worked or
Still
not. I
thinking
think it
about
would
it.
have. I'm still thinking about it. It would keep me awake at night." So,
Yep.
yeah, the it's a double-edged sword, being an entrepreneur and wanting to give things a go. But by and large, I think the positives outweigh the negatives.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that because I don't think there'll be a business owner out there that hasn't had a fail. And
No,
is it a fail? Do we need to call it a fail? Or is it like, yeah, it's a lesson learned and you had a go? It's an example
yeah,
that not every business model can be dropped into another environment and work. Like, and that's quite relevant for a lot of people
yep,
that think this is going to work here and that's going to work there. It doesn't always work out like
yeah.
that, but you had a go. And if you hadn't, our conversation would probably be talking around that as well, like that you'd never be able to let that lie.
That's right. I wouldn't be able to let it lie. And you're right. We shouldn't call it a failure. I was talking with a mentor of mine the other day, and I just, the word failure popped out of my mouth, and he pulled me up on it. And he said, "There are no failures. You learnt some
No,
very valuable lessons." And I went, "No, you're right. You're right. That wasn't a failure. That was a lot of lessons learned. And it was very expensive lessons, but
yeah,
they were
very
learned." Yeah,
expensive,
yeah,
but things that you can pass down onto other people as well.
yeah.
Um, so I was going to say, what have you found most challenging about running the business? But I guess we've touched on it. But there might be some other things within the business or
Oh, well,
personal.
I mean, yeah, we're in the hospitality business.
Hmm.
And so for us, staffing is always our biggest challenge.
Yeah,
We have, I think from memory, around 13, 14 staff. Most of them are casual or part-time.
yeah,
And the nature of our industry, and let's be honest, and I've said this to all of my team, I don't believe for a second that any of you have spent your entire life growing up and praying every night that one day you would get a job working as a cafe assistant somewhere. So I recognize that
we
this is a
know.
stepping stone.
Yeah,
It's something they're doing to fill a gap year before university, or it's a mum who just wants a day or two a week, or it's someone that's in between jobs. So it's that's always a challenge. You don't hire someone and then have them for the next 5 to 10 years as they climb the corporate ladder. And your staff are never going to be anywhere near as invested in the success of your business as you are. So
no.
yeah, that's our biggest challenge by far, is just keeping on top of the staffing issues. And we've been very fortunate. We have a really positive work environment, so we do keep staff for a good amount of time. But invariably they do leave, like I say, to go
Yeah.
study or to move away or whatever it might be. And I really do not enjoy clear the whole advertising and hiring and training new staff and all that entails. I just think, oh, what a waste of my time. If this person hadn't left, I'd be
It's
fine.
so time consuming. I
Yeah,
think
it
at the
is.
beginning, when people leave, it's also a little bit, you can take it personally at the beginning.
Mm,
Um, and it's quite devastating and it throws everything out. It's hard work. And I think, especially in hospo, it can be a revolving door. So if you don't have a revolving door, that's a great sign that you're obviously
mm,
doing something right in terms of looking after the staff. But it does go both ways. And oh my gosh,
yeah,
interviewing for hospo is is a process in itself.
yeah.
Well, that's interesting. So, we've talked about this a little bit, what lessons you've learned as a business owner, but if you could sum it up, or if someone was asking you for some advice, what lessons have you learned that really stand out?
Um, I think some of the lessons that I have learned, I would say, first of all, you obviously learn, it's just human nature. You learn far more from your mistakes and your missteps than you do from your home runs. In fact, often I think we don't tend to examine what works nearly as much as we examine what hasn't worked. And that's a shame, because there are a good amount of lessons that can be taken from what's working well. But yeah, we started this first business, it was very successful. We started a second business, it was very unsuccessful. And so most of the lessons that I've learned have come as a result of that second business, and then comparing it to the first and going, well, why didn't that work? Which I've alluded to already. A big lesson would be you have to be able to clearly communicate what problem it is that you're solving, which we could do very clearly with the first business. We couldn't do with the second business. Um, we didn't understand what made our first business successful until we removed a number of elements like the destination, some of our core products. The times that we were open were different. So um, it's quite embarrassing, actually, Claire. Like, I look back at it now and I think, oh my goodness, how could we have ever thought that that second business would work? I mean, we were limited to the mall opening hours, which meant that we had to
Yep.
shut at 6 o'clock, 5 days a week. And yet I know that one of our busiest times is dinner and after dinner. So why did we do that? We know that people love coming out for ice cream and sitting down and having a nice environment. and we stuck a kiosk in a shopping mall food court. Like, what made us think that that would ever work? All these sorts of things. But um, I think you also learn a lot about your personality as well. And I really struggled initially when it failed. It was my first significant, when I say fail, it was my most expensive lesson in business. I had previously learned other lessons in business, but they were 5 grand, 10 grand, whatever. This was in excess of six figures.
Yep.
And we realized very early, Claire, within 6 weeks of opening the store, we realized that we'd made a terrible mistake and that it was not going to be viable. And we had been smart enough to negotiate our lease down to 12 months, in case it didn't work, but we still had, 10 and a half months to go. And
Oh,
that was
wow.
really brutal on us as a family, because in order to minimize our losses, my wife had to work a significant number of hours, and we homeschool our children. So that really kind of threw our kids' education out, and
Hmm.
I had to rejig my work and stuff. So, um, yeah, we learned a lot about business, but also a lot about how we handle stress personally,
Yep.
and the impact that that can have on your marriage and your family life. And uh, I think we're probably a little bit more cautious now when it comes to taking business risks. We're a bit more aware. And we had this conversation recently because another business opportunity popped up, and I was like, "Oh yeah, let's give it another go." And my wife said to me, she said, "I can't do another year like we've just done." On
Yep.
a personal level, like, yes, we might be able to absorb it financially, but the personal cost is too high. So um, I think some of the more valuable lessons out of that was not just business lessons, but actually recognizing, okay, what's really important in life. Money's great, and business is fun, and the best business people that I've ever met are not in it for the money. They're in it to help people, or they're in it because they've got a great system or a great product and they just enjoy seeing things work. I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I love starting things. I love seeing ideas move from the ethereal into the practical, and going, yeah, that idea does work. We made this happen, and then I get bored very quickly.
Yeah.
And my wife is the complete opposite. She likes routine. She likes maintenance. She's a perfect manager. Um, and so I'm always going to tend towards, like, okay, we've done that. Let's do something else. Let's start something else. And she's very good at grounding me and saying, no, no, we need
You're
to
there.
just
What's
stick
next?
with,
What's next?
yeah, yeah, I'm the what's next guy. And she's like, well, we haven't even got this sorted yet.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would say, this has been my experience, that business is great if you've got a partner, whether you're married or whether it's just a business partner, that can provide some balance to how you do business and how you
Hmm.
view life. Otherwise, your strengths overplayed can become a liability for sure.
Yeah, you're not balanced. And I think
Mm,
we need someone to hold us accountable to those plans and those ideas.
yeah.
And, you know, business owners, we're like magpies. If something shiny and exciting is dangled in front of us, and we think it's a good idea, especially in the formative years of a business, you can be pulled in quite a
Mm,
few different directions because you think, oh, well, that could really help. Well, that could really boost our presence
yeah.
or financials. So it's easy to jump. But if you have a strategy in place that you're accountable to every week or every month, that it's going to
Mm,
keep you on that right path. And, we don't know everything as business owners. We fall into something because we're passionate about one thing or two things, but there's so much more to it. And you're right, having the calm partner or the business partner or the mentor or the coach to keep you grounded is what you need. But you also need people like
yeah.
us that have the fast paced ideas and that are going to make it happen. I'm just
Mm,
thinking about my husband at the time of saying this, the calm Excel document lover, number
yeah.
cruncher, you know. Um,
Yeah.
but one thing that I noticed from what you said is, and it really resonated with me, is business is personal. Like it all comes
Mm,
home. It affects your family or your social life or your travel plans, So it's a lot. It does it's not just turning up for work every day, it comes home with you. So to having someone to
mm,
bounce those ideas off that's not connected to your business is helpful too. Otherwise the dinner
mm.
table talk can turn into
Yeah.
business every
Yeah. It
night.
can. Yeah.
or any chat.
Yeah, yeah,
So
or the pillow
what?
talk. Yeah,
Or the pillow talk, or the school gate
yeah,
chat. It just doesn't stop, does
yeah.
it? So, what would, or who, or what would you attribute your growth to in the business?
Well, that's a good question.
Hmm,
Um, well, I don't, I don't know how much I've grown. Um, I think I have a little bit more awareness in some areas. Honestly, Claire, I think I would say I've grown in some areas and maybe even regressed in other areas.
that's
I think it's
fair.
important. It's important to have, as you said, a well balanced group of people around you. So in my case, my wife is heavily involved in the business, so she's not that person that can just say, "Hey, look, I don't want to talk about this. We're at home. Let's focus on the family." In fact, it's more often me the one saying, "Can we not talk about this right now?"
Yeah.
Because she's very much involved in the day-to-day management, and I'm more sort of big picture stuff, and so she'll get quite caught up with, "Oh, this happened at work today, and this person
Yeah.
said this, and we didn't have enough butter," and I'm like, "Oh,
Had to
couldn't
run
care
to the
less."
shops and get the eggs,
Yeah,
all
yeah,
that
all that
stuff,
kind of
the bits
stuff,
and
or
bits.
"Oh, this staff member's sick, I gotta go find cover for
Yeah.
them," and but I have obviously we're in business with some good friends, and so that's very helpful because we're in the same business, so we can kind of sympathize with each other. But we're also on a similar journey. We were wanting to really, we really want to just get the most out of life, and we're both very keen to explore more philanthropic endeavors. In actual fact, the franchise that we're a part of, a good percentage of what we pay each month is just set aside completely for charity, for giving, for philanthropic endeavours, both nationally and internationally. And yeah, we give a good percentage of what we generate away to charity as well. But that's actually written into the franchise agreement.
Well,
So
that's brilliant.
yeah, we're really on a similar journey there, which is great. And then yeah, just like I say, just solid friends that can I think you need to be open and vulnerable enough to let people challenge you in different spaces. So, case in point, we were halfway through that 12-month period where our business was failing and we were both really physically knackered. And we caught up with some family friends in Australia and they expressed their concern about how we were just looking. And they said, "Look, we want you to make us a promise that when you close your business down," and they said, "Because we know you, Josh," they said, "We want you to make us a promise that you won't do anything for 6 months." And I said, "Okay, I
Oh,
promise that." And then we closed the business down and we got kind of 2 or 3 months down the track and another opportunity popped up. And I started to, lean into that. And my wife said, "No, no, you promised Steve that you wouldn't do anything for 6 months and he will be ropeable if he finds out you get into this." And so I think just having, yeah, like friends
yeah.
and family that can look out to you and then being vulnerable enough and I think humble enough to go, "Okay, yes, you've got no idea what business is like. You don't own a business, but you can see what it's doing to our personal lives and you care enough to speak into that. And I'm going to take that on board and stick with that." So we did that. And then once the 6 months caveat went off, I was back into trying to find, what the next thing is. And we ended up getting into commercial property. So yeah,
That's a clever move as well, though.
yeah,
But
that's been
that's,
really fun. I've enjoyed that.
I can imagine. So,
Mm.
fingers in lots of pies or lots of gelato. Um,
Yeah.
so, oh, there's so much to sort of digress, go into from what you've just said. But I think it is so important to have those people around you because it can be quite an isolating, lonely place otherwise,
Yeah.
and to pull you out of your funk, especially if they notice physically things aren't great. I've been there too.
Yeah.
Um, so I'll round this up with 12 months from now. If
Mm.
you were looking back on the most amazing year in business, who would you have become and what would you have done?
Um, I mean, you said before that business is personal. I think it's very. I don't think you can separate the two out. Like it's all very much interlinked. And so, honestly, I think that the best thing that I can do for my business is to grow as a person. And the best thing I can do for my staff, or even for the church that I lead, is just to become the best version of myself. So, all of my goals, my growth goals in the next 12 months, are around personal goals, around wanting to grow in the areas of patience. I think I can tend towards reacting in situations. I sat down with my wife and kids the other day and said, "Look, what are the areas that you think I need to grow in?" That was a fun conversation. And
Love
just
that.
general levels of irritability and I can be a little bit snappy if I'm tired. So honestly, I don't really have any specific business goals other than to just, show up every day and be the best version of myself. So most of my goals are personal. In 12 months' time, if we had another conversation, I would like to say that our business in Rangiora is going strong. I would like to say that we have happy and content staff that feel that they're cared for and that they enjoy their jobs. I'm a personal believer in the Richard Branson statement, which is the job of a business owner is not to look after their customers, but to look after their staff, and then their staff will look after their customers. So, and I could certainly do that better. Um, and I'd like to say that maybe we've taken a few risks and leant into a few different opportunities and haven't been afraid to kind of, give it a go. Um, one of the potential byproducts of failing in business or learning a very expensive lesson is that you can be a little bit gun shy to take, risks moving forward. And so I'm very determined to not let that in any way, shape, or form be our reality, and to continue pushing forward and taking risks and seeing what we can do. So, yeah, in 12 months' time, happy business, happy staff, and happy wife and happy kids, and maybe have lost some weight. There's a reason this camera is from
Wondered what
here
you were
up
going to say.
clear.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's a tricky industry to be in, and you might have to open a gym next door
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe. Yeah.
in one of your commercial
Yeah.
properties. Oh, that was a
Yeah.
really nice answer. I appreciate that. Do you have any last gems or piece of advice for any other business owners or someone thinking about it that we can finish up
Um,
on?
I think I said this to someone the other day. I'm in the process of purchasing another commercial property, and we were talking about the price, and they said, "Well, look, this is what I'm looking for," and I said, "Yep, cool, like that's fair enough." And they said, "Oh, you don't want to like push back on it and negotiate it?" And I said, "No, I think it's a fair price." But my business philosophy, and I would encourage as many people to consider this as possible. I think that when business is done right, that it's a win-win situation. I think that everybody comes away from the business transaction feeling like they've done well out of it. And that wasn't my attitude when I first started in business. When I first started in business, and I was looking to kind of establish myself, I was looking for deals, I was looking to, maybe take advantage of someone who was in a
Mm.
position where they needed quick money, and I could buy that cheaply or whatever. But I think if you're honest with yourself, if at the end of the day you go, well, look, I won, but that person that I was dealing with lost, I don't think that's a great way to do business or a sustainable way to do business. And so I think, yeah, like a win-win situation is good for everybody. So in this
Yeah.
particular commercial building, scenario, I maybe could have gone in and lowballed it and said, look, I think I could get it for cheaper. This person's desperate to sell. They want to do this with the money or whatever. But I want them to walk away and go, I feel really good about this sale, as much as I walk away and go, I feel really good about this purchase. So yeah, I think look for the win-win. I think it is possible to do business that way. Um, so
I
that's
like
kind of how
that.
we approach it.
Play fair and karma plays a good part in all of this, I think.
Yeah, yeah, it's another way to put it. Yeah, yeah.
Put the
I think
good energy out there.
yeah, you get what you give, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
I think it was true. Um, Thank you. That was brilliant. So many little nuggets of, information and, definitely diving into the personal side, I think is really important. Um, and I really appreciate you sharing the ups and the downs. I was about to say failures, but we're not saying that anymore.
Yeah, yeah. The lessons.
Opportunities, or
Yeah,
however we call it. But thank you very much. I really enjoyed it. I hope you got some reflection time out of this, because that's the
I
other
did.
thing.
Thank
A
you.
lot of people, you're welcome. A lot of business owners don't get that time to have, half an hour to
Yeah.
actually look back at everything you've achieved in a very short space of time as well.
Mm. Yeah. No, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I'll speak to you soon. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
Bye.